The Nevada sun burned white over Fort Redwood. Captain Liana Cortez approached the checkpoint, uniform streaked with sand, carrying intel that could stop an attack in 90 minutes. The young guard didn't even glance up. "Civilian lines that way," he said. She showed her military ID. He pushed it back with a smirk. "Looks fake." "Not my problem." Liana leaned in. "There are explosives inside this base," he laughed. "We get 10 of you a week." Then, engines roared. A convoy of black SUVs appeared through the heat. 5 flags. 5 generals. The lead window lowered. General Stroud's face froze. "Captain Cortez, you were listed KIA." The guard's expression collapsed. What happened next would decide who lived and who didn't. "Before we begin, tell us where are you watching from? And if you believe honor and courage still matter, help keep their legacy alive." The Nevada sun burned white over Fort Redwood. Heat shimmered above the asphalt, blurring the checkpoint in the distance. Captain Liana Cortez walked straight toward it, her uniform still dusted with sand from the valley she'd just crossed. Her eyes were fixed, jaw tight. For the past 72 hours, she had been operating behind enemy lines alone. Now she carried intel that could stop an attack scheduled to strike the base within 90 minutes. The guard at the gate barely looked up. Young, fresh from training, his mirrored sunglasses reflected nothing but sky. "Ma'am," he said, tilting his chin. "Civilian lines that way." Liana stopped 2 feet from the booth. "Captain Liana Cortez, Omega 3 clearance," she said, voice firm. "I need immediate access to General Stroud. This is a matter of national security." He laughed under his breath. "Right. And I'm the Secretary of Defense, nor you enspelled of Manit." He held out his hand anyway. "Let's see this magic clearance, Captain." She handed over her identification card, scuffed, real, and worn by years of use. He took one glance and pushed it back. "Looks fake. I'm not letting you through." "Listen carefully," she said, leaning in. "There are explosives planted inside this base. If you delay me any longer," he cut her off. "Save it, lady. We get 10 of you a week. Some story about threats, bombs, aliens. Pick one." A group of soldiers near the shade snickered. One called out, "Lost, sweetheart?" Liana ignored them, but her pulse quickened. She scanned the horizon, a dust cloud vehicles approaching fast from the south. She knew that convoy pattern. "Command staff." Her voice hardened. "You're making a mistake. Contact command immediately." He crossed his arms. "If you take one more step, I'll have you detained." Seventer. Her hand moved instinctively toward her holster, not to threaten, just habit. She caught herself. Exhaled. Not here. Not against her own people. Every second, she argued, the clock ticked closer to disaster. The convoy rolled in 5 black SUVs, with flags fluttering from the antennas. Engines idled heavy. Doors stayed closed. The young guard stiffened, suddenly unsure. The lead vehicle's window lowered. Inside sat General Marcus Stroud, regional commander. His face, weathered by decades of combat, froze when he saw her. "Captain Cortez?" His voice cracked through the static. "I thought you were KIA in Helmand." The soldiers nearby went still. Even the guard's smirk vanished. Liana straightened. "Sir, if I'm standing here, it's because something's gone very wrong." She held up the encrypted satchel under her arm. "The attack's already in motion. Had 7 dation." Stroud stepped out, boots hitting the gravel. "Who authorized this entry denial?" The guard hesitated, eyes darting. "She didn't have clearance confirmation, sir. I was just following protocol." "Protocol?" Stroud's tone dropped to a growl. "You just delayed an officer carrying critical intelligence." He turned to his driver. "Get her inside, now." Liana moved toward the convoy. As she climbed in, her radio crackled a frequency she hadn't used since Afghanistan. Static. Then a distorted voice. "Echo cell active. Phase 1 commencing early." She froze. "They've started already." Stroud caught the edge in her voice. "What did you just say?" "The attack moved up. We have less than 90 minutes." The convoy surged forward, racing past the gates. Behind them, the guard swallowed hard, realizing what he'd almost stopped. One of the soldiers whispered, "Who the hell is she?" "Have not permitted." Liana looked out the window as Fort Redwood's hangars and watchtowers came into view. Her mind calculated distances, communication hubs, fuel depots, housing sectors. Every structure she passed could already be compromised. Stroud watched her from across the seat. "You came straight from the mountains?" She nodded. "Intercepted a data stream from their forward post. It listed 6 coordinates inside your base." He said nothing for a moment. Then, "Low. Then this place isn't under threat, it's already breached." A sudden tremor rattled the convoy. They all turned toward the horizon. A plume of smoke rose from beyond the west perimeter. "Contact!" shouted the driver. Liana's hand went to her sidearm. But the sound that followed wasn't another explosion, it was the base siren, shrill and rising. The general spoke into his comms. "This is Stroud. All units, lockdown protocol. Now. Has never one subscribe." The radio answered only static. Communications already jammed. Liana looked at her watch. 87 minutes left. She turned to the general. "Sir, they're already inside." He met her eyes. "Then we'll fight from within." As the convoy neared the main command bunker, the sun cut through the haze like a blade. Behind them, the young gate guard watched in silence, the reality settling in. He had just turned away the woman who might be the only person capable of saving them all. Inside the base perimeter, alarms echoed across Fort Redwood. Liana adjusted the strap of her satchel, the weight of it pressing into her shoulder. Her mission wasn't over, it had just begun. The convoy screeched to a halt beside the underground command bunker. Dust swirled through the air as soldiers sprinted between sirens. General Stroud led the way down the concrete steps, his boots echoing against steel. Inside, the command room buzzed with tension. Red emergency lights pulsed, casting the walls in a dim, warning glow. 4 generals waited at the table: Albright, Cooper, Warren, and Monroe, all summoned from nearby bases for a regional briefing that was now chaos. Liana placed her encrypted satchel on the center of the tactical table. She keyed the lock and unfolded 6 holographic schematics across the screen. 6 explosive devices, she said, her tone clipped. Power grid, fuel depot, armory, comms tower, 2 barracks, all within your perimeter. General Dean Cooper leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "How did you get this intel, Captain? You've been off-grid for days." "I infiltrated the insurgent network," she replied. Their leader called it Operation Emberfall. The timing changed. 90 minutes became 60. A murmur rippled through the room. General Ruth Albright crossed her arms. "Why wasn't command informed?" Liana looked up. "Because your communications were already compromised before I arrived." The room went silent. She brought up intercepted data, showing internal signal reroutes from Fort Redwood's own security nodes. Her finger pointed to a blinking dot. "The leak originated here from your main gate." Stroud frowned. "You're saying it's internal?" Liana nodded. "Yes, sir. One of your men has been feeding information for weeks." Her hand slid a photo across the table, grainy, captured by drone surveillance. General Warren adjusted his glasses. "Who is this?" he asked quietly. Liana answered without hesitation. "Sergeant Alan Drake, base security detail." Stroud froze, recognition striking him. "Drake. He was on duty at the gate." Liana's jaw tightened. "He refused my ID because he already knew who I was." The tension in the room thickened. General Monroe cursed under his breath. "We've been infiltrated under our noses." Before anyone could respond, the floor shuddered violently beneath their feet. A muffled explosion rolled through the bunker. Lights flickered, then died, plunging them into semi-darkness. The backup generators kicked in with a low hum, red strobes spinning overhead. "They've started early," Liana said. Her pulse quickened, but her voice stayed steady. "We're down to less than an hour." General Albright barked into her radio. "Control, report status on perimeter." Only static answered. "They're jamming frequencies," Liana said. "Standard tactic before a coordinated breach." She reached for her pistol and checked the chamber. "This room isn't safe. We need to move to secondary command." Stroud turned toward the others. "You heard her. Gather the classified intel. Lock the rest." In the Marisser, General Cooper grabbed a data drive, stuffing it into a field pouch. The door guard peeked in, face pale. "Sir, multiple gunfire reports near the west runway. We're losing contact with security teams." "Seal the entrances," Stroud ordered. "No one in or out." But even as he spoke, the lights dimmed again. A faint pop echoed from the ventilation shaft's small detonations, calculated to disable power relays. Smoke began to curl under the door. Liana scanned the room quickly. They're forcing us into the tunnels. That's the only path left. Stroud nodded. Lead the way, Captain. As they moved toward the access hatch, General Warren hesitated. What if this is a trap? They might expect us underground. They will, Liana said. That's why we'll move like they don't. The hatch creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into shadow. The air smelled of dust and oil, abandoned maintenance routes built decades ago. Each step echoed like a countdown. General Monroe looked back once more at the darkened command room. This place ran half the region's operations, he muttered. Now it's a target. Liana didn't look back. Then we take it back before they bury it. They descended into the tunnel, flashlights slicing through the black. The sound of distant gunfire thudded faintly overhead, closer with every second. Somewhere above, another explosion rattled the base like thunder. Captain, Stroud said behind her, his voice low but clear. If Drake planted those charges, what's his endgame? Liana didn't hesitate. To cripple command. To leave Fort Redwood blind before the second wave hits. Stroud gritted his teeth. Then let's make sure that wave dies here. He drew his sidearm, checking the mag. In the flicker of his light, Liana's expression hardened, focused, resolute. The tunnel door sealed behind them with a metallic clang. The echo faded into silence. Only their footsteps remained, marching deeper into the dark as Fort Redwood burned above. The air in the tunnel was thick with dust and oil. Their footsteps echoed off concrete as the team moved in single file, weapons raised. The flicker of their flashlights cut through the dark like thin blades. Liana led the group, her senses tuned to every vibration. She'd spent years underground in operations across Helmand and Ramadi. This silence was wrong. Too clean, too still. General Albright whispered behind her. Are we sure this path leads to the armory? It should, Liana replied. But expect resistance. Drake knows every corridor. A faint hum passed through the walls, power fluctuations. Someone was rerouting energy. They reached the first junction, a wide intersection dripping with condensation. Liana raised a fist, signaling a halt. In the distance, boots scuffed on metal. She crouched low, peering around the corner. 3 figures in base uniforms moved cautiously toward them, rifles drawn. Hold fire, she mouthed. The lead soldier called out, friendly, but something was off, patches wrong. Gate too synchronized. Liana saw the glint of foreign hardware under their collars. Not friendlies, she shouted. Her first shot cracked through the tunnel, echoing like thunder. The imposters opened fire, rounds sparking off pipes above. Concrete chips flew. She rolled into cover, returning precise bursts. Albright and Cooper joined in, sweeping the corridor clean within seconds. When silence fell, one attacker lay twitching on the floor. Liana kicked his weapon aside and pulled off his fake ID. Imported gear. Russian manufacture, she muttered. They've had help. A distant explosion shook the tunnel walls. General Warren winced, gripping his injured shoulder. That was the communications wing, Liana said, grim. They're cutting us off. They pressed forward, the tunnel turning narrower, walls vibrating from distant blasts, sweat mixed with grit on their faces. General Stroud's radio crackled faintly, then went dead. At the second junction, the beam of Liana's light caught a metal cylinder rolling toward them. Grenade! She yelled, diving forward. Her gloved hand scooped it mid-roll. She hurled it back down the passage. The explosion tore the air apart. Dust rained from above, stinging her eyes and mouth. Through the haze, silhouettes stumbled, shouting in a language none of them recognized. Liana fired twice, clean, efficient. The remaining attackers fled into the dark. She didn't chase. Time was bleeding away. How many more do you think? Monroe asked, panting. Too many, she said. And they know we're alive. The hum of approaching vehicles above told her reinforcements were closing in. Minutes later, they reached a sealed hatch. A rusted sign read, Research Wing Access, Authorized Personnel Only. Liana swiped her clearance card. The lock blinked green. Inside lay rows of prototypes, weapons still under test. Glass cases reflected the tremor of red emergency lights. This is the EPS-9 lab, she murmured. Experimental electro-pulse tech. General Cooper ran a hand along the nearest weapon. Has it ever been field tested? Today will be the first. She handed him one, checking the power core. She strapped a compact EPS-9 to her vest. Its energy meter hummed alive, casting a faint blue glow on her armor. "You wanted firepower," she said. "Now we have it." Gunfire erupted outside the lab. The reinforced door shook under repeated impact. "They've tracked us," Stroud warned. Liana positioned herself behind a workstation. "Set ambush. Wait for breach." The others took cover, weapons ready. The door burst open. A flood of enemy soldiers poured through, shouting commands. The first 3 dropped instantly, blue arcs flashing as Liana's EPS-9 roared. Electric pulses cracked through the air, disabling rifles, frying circuits. The room filled with ozone and the stench of burned fabric. For every hostile that fell, 2 more pushed in. Monroe fired from the left flank, his rifle emptying a full clip. "Reloading!" he barked. Albright tossed him a spare mag without hesitation. They fought back in bursts, tight, disciplined, relentless. When the last enemy hit the floor, silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Steam rose from overheated weapons. General Cooper exhaled. "That's one way to test a prototype." Liana gave a half smile. It passed. She wiped sweat from her brow, scanning the exits. A faint beeping reached her ears, steady, rhythmic, mechanical. Her gaze snapped to a nearby monitor. A live signal pulsed across 6 coordinates on the base map. "Explosive timers," she whispered. "Drake's accelerating detonation sequence." "How long?" Stroud asked. 25 minutes. Maybe less. She grabbed her gear and slung the EPS-9 across her shoulder. "We split," she ordered. 2 teams, cover different sectors. "Which one's yours?" Albright asked. "The barracks," she said, eyes sharp. "That's where the main charge sits." Stroud nodded. "We'll handle the rest. Don't get yourself killed, Captain." "Not the plan, sir," she replied, already moving. As they entered the final stretch of tunnel, the ceiling shook again, closer this time. Heat rippled through the concrete, and an orange glow flickered at the far end. Liana clenched her jaw. "They're forcing our hand," she muttered. Stroud's voice echoed behind her. "Then we push back." Together, they advanced into the fire. The tunnel opened into daylight, blinding, filled with smoke and chaos. Fort Redwood was burning, barracks in flames, alarms howling, helicopters slicing the sky. Liana wiped soot from her face, the EPS-9 humming on her chest. She sprinted across the yard, dodging debris as explosions rippled nearby. Every second felt stolen from fate. A Humvee skidded into view, riddled with bullet holes. General Stroud leaned out the passenger side, waving her in. "Get in. Command's regrouping at the central yard." She jumped onto the moving vehicle, gripping the rail as it sped through smoke. Bodies of enemy operatives littered the ground, foreign uniforms, disguised as U.S. troops. "They're thinning out," Stroud shouted. "Your intel saved half the base already." "Not enough," she said, scanning the rooftops. Drake wasn't among the dead. Her gut told her he'd kept one last card. They reached the main courtyard, where 5 remaining generals and loyal troops had formed a defense line. Gunfire echoed from the command tower. Monroe ducked behind a barrier, pointing upward. "He's up there." "Control deck." Through the haze, Liana saw him, Sergeant Alan Drake, standing at the shattered window, a detonator in his hand. Cables ran from the device to the foundation beneath the building. "He planted the failsafe," she muttered. "He means to take everyone with him." Stroud took aim with his rifle. "Clean shot. 50 meters. "Negative," Liana said quickly. "You hit him. The device goes off." She sprinted toward the base of the tower, ignoring the shouting behind her. Rounds cracked overhead. Concrete splintered near her boots. She climbed the stairs 2 at a time, lungs burning, time collapsing around her. Inside the control deck, flickering screens painted the walls in ghostly blue. Drake turned, blood streaking down his face. "You just don't quit, do you, Captain?" "Not when my people are still alive," she replied. His thumb hovered over the detonator. "This whole base is a lie," he hissed. "You think you're protecting America. You're protecting corruption." She kept her weapon low, eyes fixed on his hand. "Maybe. But not today. Today I protect them." He laughed, the sound sharp, unhinged. "You won't shoot me. You're too disciplined for that." Liana's voice dropped to a whisper. "You're right." Then she tapped the EPS-9's trigger switch. A wave of blue light erupted, cracking the air with electric force. The detonator flew from Drake's grip, skidding across the floor. He screamed as the pulse overloaded his headset and dropped him to his knees. Liana dove forward, sliding on her side. Her fingers caught the detonator an instant before it hit the floor. She yanked the power cell out. Dead silence followed. Below, the battlefield stilled. Troops looked up from cover, waiting. Then, a flare burst into the sky, the all-clear signal. Stroud's voice came through her earpiece. "Status, Captain," she exhaled. "All charges neutralized. Target contained." Drake stirred on the ground, coughing. Liana stood over him, weapon steady. "You used your uniform to betray your own," she said quietly. "That's your legacy." He tried to sneer. "You think you've won?" She holstered her weapon. "No, we just survived." Then she turned away as MPs rushed in to take him. Outside, rotor blades thundered overhead. Medical crews filled the courtyard, moving among the wounded. The air reeked of smoke, fuel, and the faint tang of ozone from the pulse rifle. Stroud met her near the barricade, face lined with exhaustion. "You saved Fort Redwood, Captain." She shook her head. "It wasn't just me." General Albright approached, her sleeve torn. "Your actions stopped a chain reaction that could have leveled the region. That counts for something." Liana gave a half smile. "Then I guess today was worth the dust." As night fell, the fires dimmed into red embers. The stars emerged cold, quiet, indifferent. Stroud handed her a small velvet box. The president called. "Silent Valor Citation, with immediate promotion to Major General." Liana looked down at the insignia inside, its silver glint catching the light. "I didn't come here for medals, sir." "I know," he said softly. "That's why you deserve it." She closed the box and slipped it into her pocket. Some victories didn't need parades. A familiar voice called out from behind. It was the young gate guard helmet under his arm, face pale with guilt. "General Cortez," he stammered. "I owe you an apology." Liana regarded him for a long moment. The wind tugged at her scorched sleeve. "Apology accepted," she said. "Just remember, never judge a soldier by their silence." He saluted sharply. She returned it. Then she turned toward the ruins of the base, the flag torn but still flying above. In the distance, dawn began to break. The first light touched her face, gold against the gray. Stroud's voice carried over the hum of the choppers. "What will you do now, General?" Liana watched the horizon, where smoke met sunrise. Her answer was simple, steady, final. "Keep fighting. Some battles end in fire, others begin with it." If you enjoyed the story, consider sending a super chat to help bring more stories like this. Now, click on the video on the screen to hear another story that's just as powerful and captivating, with courage, sacrifice, and a choice that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about duty and justice.